The world's most powerful men didn't just fall in love, they engineered it with cold, calculated precision. Every ring, every vow, calculated moves in the greatest wealth game ever played. This is the strategy they never wanted you to know. Trillion-dollar empires didn't rise on talent alone. Behind every dynasty is a strategic union. A marriage not just of hearts, but of assets, bloodlines, and power. The most expensive decision a billionaire ever makes. Before the champagne, there are clauses. Before the vows, there are valuations. The billionaire doesn't fall in love by accident. He selects, he structures, he secures. She entered the room and changed the math entirely. Not because of beauty, because of alignment. Values, vision, vault compatibility. This is the billion-dollar romance formula. Warren Buffett said it plainly to the world. The world's greatest investors confirm it quietly. Marriage is not a sentimental act for the ultra-wealthy. It is the ultimate capital allocation. For centuries, royal marriages were treaties. Territory was once exchanged at these altars. Today, the currency has changed, but the logic remains. The Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Astors, the prenuptial agreement is just the surface. Whose bloodline inherits the empire? Which assets flow forward? Which names endure? Whose bloodline inherits the empire? The world's wealthiest read the same books. They understand leverage in markets and in life. And they learned who you choose to sit across from at dinner forever determines the trajectory of everything. The Swiss understood before anyone else. Wealth without structure evaporates in 3 generations. The marriage is the structure. The right partner is the vault. Silicon Valley reframed everything in data. Even the concept of love became a system. Founders began asking, does this person scale with me? Can they hold the vision when the empire shakes? The ultra-wealthy don't use apps. They have curators, discreet professionals. People who understand that at this level, a wrong match doesn't break a heart, it fractures an empire. At 40 floors up, everything looks like strategy. The city, the market, the future, and her seated across from him in the restaurant below. He selects, he structures, he secures. In the Gulf, marriage has always been statecraft. Tribes became corporations, alliances became conglomerates. The sheikhs didn't separate love from empire. They fused them into one impossible, brilliant machine. London built its empire on marriages. Industry families tied together by daughters and estates. Warren Buffett said it plainly to the world, billionaires marry into geographies of absolute power. The city, the market, the future. The family office manages everything. Before the vows, there are valuations. Behind every dynasty, a strategic union. They understand leverage in markets and in life. Whose bloodline inherits the empire? The ultra-wealthy don't use apps. Can they hold the vision when the empire shakes? Today, IP, equity, and brand value replace land and titles. And they learned who you choose to sit across from at dinner forever. Tribes became corporations, alliances became conglomerates. They fused them into one impossible, brilliant machine. The world's most powerful men didn't just fall in love. Trillion-dollar empires didn't rise on talent alone. The billionaire doesn't fall in love by accident. Whose bloodline inherits the empire? Even the concept of love became a system. People who understand that at this level, a wrong match? Every era's wealthiest families played the same game. For centuries, royal marriages were treaties. The prenuptial agreement is just the surface. The marriage is the fundamental structure. And the unbearable weight of knowing every choice has a price tag. The city, the market, the future. Paparazzi, board decisions, generational jealousy. When the strategy fails, the losses are catastrophic. Investments, trusts, holdings, succession is the management of the marriage itself. Determines the trajectory of everything. Doesn't break a heart, it fractures an empire. Industry families tied together by daughters and estates. And her seated across from him in the restaurant below. Not because of beauty, because of alignment. Values, vision, vault compatibility. Tribes became corporations. Alliances became conglomerates. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Harold Hamm. Every billionaire has a theory of love. Who carries the next generation of wealth? Today, IP, equity, and brand value replace land and titles. Founders began asking, does this person scale with me? Even the concept of love became a system. They have curators, discreet professionals. Today, the currency has changed, but the logic remains. And the unbearable weight of knowing every choice has a price tag. And more critically, who do they marry? The marriage is the vessel. The strategy is flawless on paper. Marriage is not a sentimental act for the ultra-wealthy. Tribes became corporations, alliances became conglomerates. Industry families tied together by daughters and estates. Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, Harold Hamm. Paparazzi, board decisions, generational jealousy. Doesn't break a heart, it fractures an empire. Can they hold the vision when the empire shakes? And her, seated across from him in the restaurant below, is the management of the marriage itself. Values, vision, vault compatibility. The world's most powerful men didn't just fall in love. The world's greatest investors confirm it quietly. The billionaire doesn't fall in love by accident. The right partner is the vault. The marriage is the structure. The world's wealthiest read the same books. The prenuptial agreement is just the surface. Founders began asking, does this person scale with me? In the Gulf, marriage has always been statecraft. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes with precision. Wealth without structure evaporates in 3 generations. He selects, he structures, he secures. Before the champagne, there are clauses. Before the vows, there are valuations. Trillion-dollar empires didn't rise on talent alone. The world's most powerful men didn't just fall in love. They engineered it with cold, calculated precision. Every ring, every vow, calculated moves in the greatest wealth game ever played. This is the strategy they never wanted you to know. Trillion-dollar empires didn't rise on talent alone. Behind every dynasty, a strategic union. A marriage not just of hearts, but of assets, bloodlines, and power. The most expensive decision a billionaire ever makes. Before the champagne, there are clauses. Before the vows, there are valuations. The billionaire doesn't fall in love by accident. He selects, he structures, he secures. She entered the room and changed the math entirely. The selection process begins years before the introduction. Backgrounds checked, values mapped, compatibility scored. At this level, meeting someone isn't chance, it is a curated collision. The selection process is intense and definitive. The first filter for selection is always composure under pressure. Can she move through a world of infinite privilege and remain herself? Does power attract her, or does she simply expect it? The answer to that question determines everything for the future. Trust is tested before the marriage begins. Can you read the wind together? Can you read the wind together, navigate silence, share a helm? These are not romantic metaphors. They are literal qualifying criteria. Trust is the ultimate anchor in a world of uncertainty. The dinner is the interview, high-speed precision and intense focus. Every word chosen, every silence studied. Order with confidence, tip with generosity. The wealthiest observers notice everything, even from a single lit window in the dark. The first trip together is diagnostic. How do you handle disruption? Boredom, proximity, these are the real questions. 30 hours at altitude reveals more than 30 months of dates. Billionaires use travel as a selection accelerator to test disruption and boredom. Intelligence is currency at the top, the kind that illuminates rooms. Not the kind that scores exams, the kind of intelligence that illuminates rooms. Can she hold court with Nobel laureates? The observer remains genuinely still. In this world, intellectual range is the rarest luxury, protected by walls of stone. Social capital is not birthright. It is a skill tested in the world's most exclusive rooms. Can she enter a room of strangers and leave with allies? Can she represent the family brand at the highest level of society? This is the criteria no one writes down, but everyone scores. He doesn't just see who she is today, he projects who she will be in 30 years. He projects who she will be in 30 years, looking for consistency. Will she still command the room, or will the weight of the empire diminish her? He is looking for a lifetime anchor, still a unit after decades of partnership. The selection test that matters most. Can you build together? Not houses, visions. Can you stand on unfinished ground and see the finished structure? That shared sight is the foundation of dynasty, possibility built from stone. That shared sight is the foundation of dynasty. The prenup is not a distrust document. It is the most honest conversation you will ever have. The prenup is the most honest conversation you will ever have, redlining the terms of your future. What belongs to whom? What is built together? What is protected? Clarity before commitment, the foundation of lasting union. Every era of stability in history was secured by a successful strategic marriage. Baroque opulence, every era of stability was secured by a successful strategic alliance. A geopolitical instrument, the architecture of selection written in history. Until she became a human being, she was a geopolitical instrument. Modern wealth managers now model partner selection like portfolio construction. Identify risks, quantify synergies, stress test assumptions. The emotionless framework applied to the most emotional decision. Identify risks, quantify synergies, stress test every assumption before the final choice. Beneath every framework is a man alone with the question, what do I actually need? Not the strategy, not the asset, but the person. The answer, when it comes honestly, changes everything. In the end, it is a personal truth. What do I actually need? Even in the most calculated environment, there is that moment. Each one a category of achievement. When the algorithm fails, even in the most calculated environment, there is that moment when the algorithm fails. When the algorithm fails and the dossier is irrelevant, when the only thing that matters is now. The ones who were never looking are always the most sought after. She had built her own empire quietly, representing a life fully expressed. She needed nothing, wanted very little, and that made her invaluable. Comfortable with her own solitude, the Pacific absolute behind her. Speed demands stability beside it. The faster the empire moves, the more essential the anchor. Not someone who slows you, someone who ensures you don't lose the wheel. Stability is the ultimate performance enhancer, someone who ensures you don't lose the wheel. The game teaches the player patience, risk, and the acceptance of imperfection. Patience, risk, the acceptance of imperfection. Every shot is a lesson. Billionaires notice how you play golf. They're studying how you'll navigate the rest. Because they're studying how you'll navigate the rest of it. The trillion-dollar question. The real selection test is never in the ballroom. It is here, in a beige waiting room. When nothing is glamorous, when everything is real, presence is the ultimate test. When nothing is glamorous, when everything is real, presence is the only test. And you discover who actually stays, the anchor in the storm. After every battle, there is the call home, not to report, not to strategize. To exist, the right partner makes that call the most important of the day. The right partner makes the call home the most important part of the day, a sanctuary built through selection, the most important call of the day. Paris was never about romance, it was about ideas. The cafes where empires were conceived and the marriages that provided the fuel for them. Paris was never about romance, it was about the cafes where empires were conceived. Strategic alignment in the city of light, when the thinking confirms what the heart knew. New Zealand isolates the soul, the capacities discovered in the winter light, strength. Side by side without spectacle, built on simple actions of legacy, simple. That ease is the rarest form of compatibility, built through shared action and effort. Side by side without spectacle, that ease is the rarest form of compatibility. Prestigious institutions have studied billionaire marriages specifically for years. Only secure attachment produces multi-generational wealth, the foundation of dynastic strength, wealth. Anxious attachment destroys empires fastest. Avoidant creates efficient but cold dynasties. Only secure attachment produces multi-generational wealth, the foundation of dynastic strength, wealth. You don't just marry the person, you marry the family system. Every dysfunction, every expectation, every competing loyalty. Assessment and warmth, the family's collective lean in. Every dysfunction accounted for. Assessment. You marry the family system. Every dysfunction and competing loyalty, integration. The right partnership expands both people. A shared horizon, he becomes more curious. She becomes more decisive. Together, they access capabilities. Together, they access capabilities neither had alone. A shared horizon. The right partnership expands both people. Timeless and unhurried. A shared horizon. Every great trade is made with conviction and humility. The same for selection. Conviction in the thesis. Humility to exit if wrong. The discipline of choice. The same discipline applied to marriage selection. Conviction in the thesis. Humility to exit. Discipline. Choose with conviction. Hold with honesty. The individual vanishing into the system of choice. Honest. Remove the empire. Put two people in the African savannah at sunset. Are they compatible? Put two people in the African savannah at sunset. Are they still compatible? The true test. Sunset. The question beneath all the others. Unfiltered reactions in a vast silent landscape. Unfiltered. Remove the empire. Remove the network and assets. Tiny in the scale of it all. Tiny. She brought something no spreadsheet measured. A life she had built. Real and independent. A life she had built. Real, independent, unafraid. Something no spreadsheet measured. Unafeared. Sometimes the strategy and the feeling align, and when they do, the signature is effortless. The thinking confirmed what the heart already knew. Architecture meeting emotion. Pure silence. Assessment and warmth. The grandmother watches, every detail scored, the eye of legacy. Sometimes the strategy and the feeling align. The signature is effortless and final. Effortless. Not because thinking stopped, but because thinking confirmed what the heart knew. Emotional logic. Emotional. Small. Alone. Surrounded by the city's indifferent scale. The thinking was confirmed. Alone. They arrive in the world already positioned. The children, the living proof of architecture. Positioning. Relationship milestones mapped like growth curves. Belief before the numbers were real. Growth. The silent architect of a unicorn. A partner who believed before the numbers did. Support. Every unicorn company has a partner who believed before the numbers were ever real. Belief. In these moments, the $1 trillion dissolves, an island of life in gray steel. Life. What is left is just two people and the simple extraordinary question. Two people. The ring is the final calculation made physical, chosen for her specifically. Her. When a billionaire reaches this moment, the strategy has finally become love. Strategy. At the top of everything, what do you want beside you? The breathtaking scale. At the top of everything, what do you want beside you? Breathtaking scale of power. Scale. Not the asset, not the alliance, the person. That is where strategy ends. Person. That answer is where strategy ends and life begins. Standing together at the peak begins. The commitment begins. What has been calculated will now be lived. The final union. The dinner is the interview. High-speed precision and intense focus in every movement. When the algorithm fails and the dossier is irrelevant, when the only thing that matters is now. Speed demands stability beside it. The faster the empire moves, the more essential the anchor. Patience, risk, the acceptance of imperfection. Billionaires study how you'll navigate it all. Marie Antoinette was a geopolitical instrument before she became a human being. The real selection test is never in the ballroom, it is here, when everything is real. Stability ensures you don't lose the wheel at 200 miles per hour. Every era of stability was secured by a successful strategic marriage written in stone. In the beige silence of a waiting room, you discover who actually stays beside you. Presence is the ultimate criteria, a steady hand when nothing is glamorous. After every battle, there is the call home, not to report, not to strategize, to exist. She had built her own empire quietly, representing a life fully expressed in every detail. At the top of everything, what do you want beside you? That answer changes everything. The longest investments are always the most personal. A marriage takes everything you have. You don't just marry the person, you marry the entire family system and its expectations. She brought something no spreadsheet measured, a life she had built, real and independent. Sometimes the strategy and the feeling align, and when they do, the signature is effortless. The thinking confirmed what the heart already knew, architecture meeting emotion. In these moments, the $1 trillion dissolves. What is left is just two people. Backgrounds checked, values mapped, compatibility scored by those who notice everything. Marie Antoinette was not a romantic figure. She was a geopolitical instrument of power. The prenup is the most honest conversation you will ever have. Decades of history in order. When a billionaire reaches this moment, the strategy has finally become love. Beneath every clinical framework is a man alone with the question, what do I actually need? Psychologists have studied billionaire marriages specifically to identify risks and synergies. Every great trade is made with conviction and humility, the individual vanishing into the system. The successful selections account for every dysfunction and competing loyalty in the system. Remove the empire, put two people in the African savannah at sunset. Are they compatible? She built her own empire quietly, wanted very little, and that made her invaluable. Clarity before commitment, case files in perfect order, documenting decades of family history. Modern wealth managers now model partner selection like high-stakes portfolio construction. Every dysfunction, every expectation, every competing loyalty within the dynasty. The real selection test is here, in a beige waiting room, when everything is real. After every battle, there is the call home. To exist, the partner makes that call essential. The selection process begins years before the introduction. Values mapped, compatibility scored. Backgrounds checked, meeting someone isn't chance, it is a curated collision. He projects who she will be in 30 years. Will the weight of empire diminish her? The ring is the final calculation made physical, chosen for her specifically. Psychologists have studied billionaire marriages specifically. Secure attachment produces wealth. Hall of Mirrors. Every era of stability was secured by a successful strategic marriage. Stress test assumptions, identify risks, the emotionless framework applied to selection. The game teaches the player patience. Billionaires notice how you navigate imperfection. In a quiet hallway, you discover who actually stays. Presence is the rarest luxury. What has been calculated will now be lived. The trillions-dollar strategy meets its test. Avoidant attachment creates efficient dynasties. Only secure attachment produces legacy. European history was preceded by strategic marriages and geopolitical instruments. Can you stand on unfinished ground and see the finished structure? Shared sight. Not the fashion, not the social category. Chosen for her, the actual her. Billionaires study how you navigate the rest of it. Risk, patience, risk. Reading behavior from a quiet distance. Will she still command the room in decades? He becomes more curious. She becomes more decisive, accessing capabilities. The anchor ensures you don't lose the wheel. Stability is the performance enhancer. Institutions have studied these marriages. Anxious attachment destroys empires. Marie Antoinette was not a romantic figure, but a geopolitical instrument. Identify risks. Redline the terms. Clarity before commitment in a lasting union. Someone who ensures you don't lose the wheel. The faster the empire moves. Patience. Risk, navigating silence. Billionaires notice how you play the game. Quantify synergies. Identify risks. Applied to the most emotional decision. You marry the family system. Every dysfunction and competing loyalty. When nothing is glamorous. When everything is real. In a beige waiting room. After every battle, there is the call home. To existence. To a sanctuary. The selection process begins years before the introduction. A curated collision. Compatibility scored. Values mapped. Meeting someone at this level isn't chance. He projects who she will be in 30 years, reading her behavior from a distance. Risk, imperfection, the trillion-dollar question, is this the one? When everything is real, you discover who actually stays. The steady presence, the trillion-dollar strategy meets its only test. Selection ends, commitment begins. Avoidant attachment creates efficient dynasties. Secure attachment produces wealth. Geopolitical instruments. Every major European war was preceded by failed alliances. Every strategic marriage carries a fault line. Built in under the marble, a strategic arrangement, invisible until the earth moves, tense coordination. And at this altitude, when it cracks, the whole world watches. The market felt it before the papers printed it, 4%, and that's the price of a broken marriage. In one single morning, the world changed. On one family's publicly traded holdings, the dismantling of a billionaire marriage is not private. It is archaeological, stripped of art, stripped of life. Which painting goes where? Which version of the past was real? Which version of the past was real? When the private collapses, the professional trembles. Board members don't ask about love, they ask about stability. They ask about governance, succession, stability. Personal pain, expressed as quarterly concern. Lawyers become the interpreters of love's end. Every feeling translated into claim. Every strategic marriage carries a fault line, built in under the marble. Every feeling translated into claim, every memory assigned a monetary value. The coldest math applied to the warmest years. The diagnosis is always the same. Extraordinary people, isolation. Two extraordinary people who forgot to be ordinary with each other. The empire demanded everything: control, expectations, performance. The empire demanded everything, and they gave it together. The children calculate faster than the attorneys. They have been watching this negotiation their whole lives. They know exactly what's at stake: strained smiles, performance, and they will carry this long after the papers are signed. Altitude used to clarify everything, above the clouds. Now it only amplifies the silence. He built an empire for someone to share it with, and is now unsure what he built it for. In Discovery, love becomes chronology, midnight in the tower. Every email, every transaction, every absence reconstructed in documents. The marriage reconstructed in documents. To be divided, like inventory. The estate changes hands but holds the memory. One chapter ends. Every wall absorbs what happened here. The arguments, the celebrations, the silences. Layers of lives the new owner will never know. The settlement offer is not an ending, it is a proposal. It is a proposal about what the years were worth, 8 figures. And both sides know no number gets it right, deep calculation. Because some of what was lost cannot be quantified, conflict. The yacht was named after her, 500 feet of floating aspiration. 500 feet of floating aspiration, now renamed, repainted. Now renamed, repainted, the harbor finally quiet, empty. Her name, removed with heat guns and patience. Same rooms, different configurations, the donor network. They divvy up the events like they divvied up everything else. Single name, they divvy up the events like they divvied up everything else. Reading the situation. Tuesdays and Thursdays with the donor network. Commanding solitude. Quiet table. He runs farther now. No destination, just distance. Misty world. The empire still runs itself, but the man inside is looking. The empire still runs itself. Honest exertion, movement. But the man inside it is looking for something he can't outsource. The family meeting is never about the divorce. Lake estate. It is about who inherits the loyalty, lifetime authority. Speaking. Who will the grandchildren call first? Divided loyalties, tension, the family structure visible as a diagram of fault lines, serious. In India's conglomerate culture, a family divorce shakes sectors. Bollywood tabloid cover, a power couple split on every front page. Employees avoiding eye contact with the screens showing the news. Empty desk, the city rain blurred beyond, loves mathematics. She didn't lose the strategy, she carried the real capital forward. She carried the real capital forward. Her name, her clarity, alone. Her name, her record, her clarity, built on her own terms now. Built on her own terms now. A presence that endures. Built on her own terms now. Presence that endures. Silence, stillness. The legal aftermath is longer than the marriage was. Enormous weight. Trusts, holdings, IP licenses, foundation boards, restructuring the names. The untangling of two lives at this scale takes an army. Takes an army in a decade, restructuring in boxes. Because that is the man who must now rebuild. Reclaiming the land, because that is the man who must now rebuild. Some choices cannot be undone. The fjord doesn't care about the empire. Silence. And that indifference becomes the first honest thing in years. The foundation outlives the union, hundreds of employees, thousands of beneficiaries, the legacy built together. The legacy they built together, still standing. Sometimes the work endures what the love couldn't. Rome was built on strategic unions, the eternal city, and Rome survived most of them breaking. The empire continues. The lesson they left, the drama ends, the memory preserved. The individuals and more footnotes, modernity meets permanence. In the middle of the ocean, the $1 trillion means nothing. The market can't reach you here. Absolute exposure. And for the first time in years, the silence tells you the truth. The silence tells you the truth. Isolated point of light. The anger dissolved by time into something more honest. Not love again, but the acknowledgement that it once was. Moving on. The builder rebuilds. That is what they do. New structures rising, and build the next one stronger. Ambition rising from the ground. She didn't need the strategy. She had been the strategy, and outgrew it. Now she runs her own empire, with discipline. With the discipline he never saw coming. Evaluating patience. Her kingdom now, entirely, isolated and powerful. The most powerful men sometimes need to become no one. Strip the title, the portfolio, the reputation, walking slowly. Who are you without it? Sitting in silence. The aftermath is also a design exercise, rebuilding the self. What do you keep? What do you release? Loops of genuine reflection. The reduced life, sometimes more honest than the expanded one. The billionaire briefly in a one-bedroom, edited down to essentials. The children do not care about the asset split. They care for the joy. They care about the look on both faces when the cake arrives. They care about the look on both faces when the cake arrives. The first morning of freedom, not loneliness, freedom. The entrepreneur's response to loss is always the same: build. Not because building heals, but because it is the only language they know. Empires come and go. The desert was here before all of it, and will remain after. This perspective, available only to the brave. This perspective, available only to the brave enough to seek it, and will remain after. The scale of time is humbling. This perspective, available only to the brave enough to seek it. The stars. The Greeks built their dramas in stone, permanent above the city. Heroes, lovers, dynasties, golden light through ancient stone. The lesson they left, the drama ends. The memory preserved in marble. The architecture endures, footnotes in history, the city below. The house survives the marriage, life returning to the stone. The estate absorbs the next chapter, walls holding laughter. Eventually, even the most complex equation simplifies. A quiet dawn, not to romance, not to strategy, a shared history being. After the strategy, after the selection, after the fractures, a name, a structure, a set of values. This is the architecture of legacy. The most measurable outcome of the marriage strategy is who sits in that chair, how they speak, what they understand. In the end, the stone records what the strategy built. What happened between them, private. What they built together, permanent. Hospitals, schools, libraries. A tax on the future, paid in generosity. The child of the right union, funding hundreds of futures. This is what the $1 trillion strategy was always for. the highest leverage point of a billionaire marriage is the scholarship. The child of the right union, funding hundreds of futures. The ability to sustain art, thought, possibility. The most sophisticated families allocate capital to the future. That is a return on investment that defies calculation. A marriage 2 generations back, still creating peace. The family that married well now invests in the world's next great billionaires. Running across the lawn towards someone who loves him completely, family governance is the marriage's ultimate product. Winter's dinner's the same fire. The granddaughter didn't inherit the company, she built her own. Not just buildings with the family name. Culture requires patronage, every great symphony, an estate that funded it. Culture requires patronage, every great symphony, an estate that funded it. The greatest return on a billionaire marriage is the stranger whose life it saved. Every dynasty began here, 2 people, a beginning. Every empire is a ship, built by 2 people who agreed on the destination, and then sailed toward it through every weather, together. And then sailed toward it through every weather, together. And then sailed toward it through every weather, together. Not the money, the understanding of what it cost and what it was for. The greatest empires protect what they cannot own. A marriage that built enough to give back to the irreplaceable. The greatest empires protect what they cannot own. The $1 trillion was never just theirs. It moved through the city, employed, funded, fed the billionaire marriage. A private contract with public consequences. Every summit requires a base camp, someone who held the rope, who mapped the route, who believed in the climb. Every summit requires a base camp, someone who held the rope. Every summit requires a base camp, someone who held the rope. They had no idea what they were starting. They only knew they wanted to build it together. They call it love. History will call it strategy. The truth is that the greatest marriages were always both. The truth is that the greatest marriages were always both.